It just meant more. We're talking
I
2021.
swear to God, Connor, if you don't start this podcast by saying hello and welcome, that's the second time in a row you've done it.
I wanted to see how you would react to it. So
It's
we'll just
not
pretend
good.
that didn't happen. Like pretend this is just the replay that last 15 seconds of the podcast. And instead pretend that this is the intro. All right. I'll do this to appease you and to appease the OG listeners of the podcast. Hello and welcome to the Saturday Down South podcast. I am Connor O'Gara, Chris Marler.
What up? Nighthawk.
Nighthawk.
Yeah, it didn't come off as great as I thought it would.
Okay. All right. We can go there.
Well, that's the show.
It just meant more. We have been talking about this for a while, wanting to do one of these. For those of you who maybe are more recent listeners of the podcast, if you listen to College Football Uncensored, if you listen to the Saturday Down South podcast, by the way, go subscribe to both, whatever channel you're listening on. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you very much as well. Subscribe to the Saturday Down South. Yes, subscribe to the Saturday Down South YouTube page as well. Marler, we have not done one of these since 2020. And this is essentially classic game podcast. We are built all around recapping a classic SEC game. If you want to go dig into the archives, we have plenty of these. Today we are doing 2021 Arkansas Ole Miss. I'm a little bit rusty. I'm warning you right now. I'm a little bit rusty doing these podcasts.
We used to do a ton of these. Like you did. I mean, not really. Like you haven't gained a lot of weight or gotten sad, so that's good. No, like so like for those of you that like Connor said that maybe haven't been listening for the longest time, the way this all started was in 2020 when I guess I don't know whose fault it was, but the pandemic started. Like everything shut down, and then I had this brilliant idea. It was like, hey, we should do more work. Had a get out of jail free card, an excuse to not do anything, and we were somehow got to keep our jobs. I was like, no, let's do more. And so we started doing 3 pods a week, and it was actually a lot of fun because this is one of my favorite things. And we look back at old games. And if you're like a college football junkie or SEC, like if you're like a lifelong fan, I feel like this is stuff we do anyway. And you picked this game. Is it actually, what is it? Wasn't it voted the best game of the year last year?
Bill Connolly put it as his game of the year on ESPN.com. And typically we don't look back on games that are from the most recent season.
Right.
We usually try and dig into the archives, and we've done, games from, we did Bo Over the Top. I think that's the oldest game that we've done.
One, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the one. Yeah. Bama lost in that one. We've done a couple other, I'm surprised that if this was on SEC Network, we would have already done the 2019 LSU Bama game 5 times, just from a different perspective each time.
I almost suggested 2021 Bama A&M, but I instead went with a game that was on the same exact day.
Yeah, I caught on to that. It wasn't as subtle as you think it was. No, so Connor recommended this, and I was like, oh yeah, that's a great game. What else was going on that day? Oh, Zach Calzada ruined my life. That was tough, but it was fun going back and looking at this. When I say we changed roles or we switched roles, Connor sent me his notes. You texted super early. You're I could just tell. I was like, this man is a giddy. He is ready to go. And I love it. And he's like, I got notes, all caps. And I thought he was just exaggerating. Cause in the past, what I would do is overthink everything, and I would write everything down. And then we always had to have separate Google Docs. Cause I'd have to have my own stuff. And also I would screw up the Google Doc you set up every time. Connor had over 10 pages of notes.
This game is awesome.
It is awesome.
I love this game. I'm sorry. What did you do on Friday night? I sat at home and just typed up as much as I could about this game. And this, in so many ways, this is why college football is beautiful. That's a broad statement. They can go a lot of different directions with that. 103 combined points, 673 combined rushing yards. A back and forth game that is decided by a failed 2-point conversion with no time remaining on the clock.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert. Sorry. For those of you who do not know the winner and loser of this game. By the way, it's fun. We always recommend with these podcasts that we do, or if you're watching this on YouTube as well, go back and watch the game yourself. Kind of maybe follow along, or if you want to watch this before even listening to this podcast, do that. A lot of fun to be able to do that.
Listen to the podcast though. or call Connor. He'll watch it with you. Like, I'm sure of it. No, I think a couple people used to like, they would like cut the grass, but it was funny, like listen to some of the like responses we got, because I think we threw that idea out there and then not everyone like was like, no, I'm not going to do that. That's stupid. And then everyone, like, there's like several people that reached out. It was like, I had to immediately go watch this game. I forgot about this, and this, because it's also crazy. You said, this is what's so great about college football. This entire day, this entire Saturday was like the epitome of why I love college football from start. I don't want to say to finish, because again, that field goal that looked like it was definitely going left for a second, that went through the uprights in College Station, was upsetting. But this game, right off the top, and this is before your time, but this would have been like a peak Jefferson Pilot matchup.
Because it's the time of game the time of day that it was played.
Yeah.
11 a.m. local time, noon Eastern, right?
12:30 was JP though. Just
good point. Great point. This game starting in that early slot and playing out the way that it did was awesome. And it was in that early slot in part, if I'm not mistaken, well, they might have come up with, I think they might have held off on this time slot, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah.
This was the bounce back bowl, because both of these teams were just humbled by the eventual national championship participants a week earlier. And so in some ways, it wasn't like this game was national championship or bust, which I would actually argue sometimes those games are more fun to watch, especially as when you don't have a rooting interest. Those are the best games to be able to watch, and you just get the pure entertainment of it. If you're gambling on it and you bet the over.
Oh, that's the first thing in my notes, by the way.
Did you bet the over on this game?
I hammered the first quarter and first half over almost more than any other bet I'd made this entire year. And I'll tell you why. We'll get into it. But like, yes, I took the over. I don't think I had Ole Miss to cover, but I do remember like this was a top 20 matchup. It was one of 4 games that weekend with 2 ranked teams playing, and it was completely lost in the mix, completely overlooked. Nobody was talking about it because you also had in the SEC alone, Auburn and Georgia, and Auburn was still somehow ranked at that point. That was a 3:30 game.
Yep.
In October, which we're not going to get into. You had Bama and A&M as the slotted like one time a year primetime game on CBS. But then you also had like, and I didn't realize this until they started the broadcast, and it was one of my favorite quotes. You had Penn State and Iowa playing in a top 5 matchup.
Yep.
Don't get me started on that. And then you had, I'm trying to think, like Michigan,
the game that I was
Nebraska.
At. The game that I was at that
Kentucky
day.
LSU.
In Lexington. And so that gets lost in the shuffle of that day. By the way, I never told you that if Bama had just blown out A&M, I would have been able to go out to let's call it a VIP situation with our friends Tom Hart, Jordan Rogers, and
I'm so sorry for your loss. That's awful.
Watch the Tyson Fury, the Wilder Fury fight that night.
Also, if that had just happened. Oh yeah, that was that weekend.
That was that night. And
I'm sorry Bama didn't do that for you. I know that was something you were really hoping would happen.
Just for selfish reasons. Yeah.
I mean, well, it was funny too, because you were in Lexington for the LSU game. I was in Baton Rouge the week before, as like a Stella got her groove back situation, because it was like right after I dropped everything off with the X, and Mickey Sheremy, our good buddy, was like, "Dude, you got to come to Baton Rouge." And I was like, "Yes." So
what great words those are. You got to come to Baton Rouge.
And I don't know if I told you this either, but in just what I hope will always be the tradition. Got there, went to the casino, was up like 450 within the first hour or something like that.
How does that always happen to you?
It's craps, dude. I told you, listen, there's a system, and it was awesome. And Mickey was incredible. Anyway, but like the 12 o'clock game the week before was Arkansas, Georgia, right? Top 10 matchup, game days there. The rare game day going into a 12 o'clock start at the SEC, especially, was kind of weird.
Yep.
And then you had Bama Ole Miss at 3:30. Ole Miss coming off a bye week. Like I thought they were going to beat Bama, because we'd see Bama struggle with Florida. They didn't look like as, I don't know, invincible as we maybe thought. And Ole Miss definitely did. Both those games do not go like their way, these two teams' way, like you were saying. But again, the bounce back bowl, Matt Corral, 6 interceptions in the year before.
Yep.
Pittman is an underdog yet again for like seemingly, I think, every game that he had been a head coach. And Arkansas is coming in from, hold on, there's one more ranked team I'm forgetting about, or one more ranked game.
with two ranked teams that day. Just because in the SEC, I think you had it covered with those. But it was a wild day in college football. And
Texas Oklahoma also on at 12.
Great point. That's not the last Texas Oklahoma mention we're going to have, by the way. Little teaser for later. The ultimate sign of an incredible sporting event, and I said this in the pod recap that day as well, is when you have people without any rooting interest or gambling interest, which I guess that is technically a rooting interest, who are watching a game and they're on the edge of their seats with every play down the stretch. And watching this at my brother's house with my family in Lexington, that's exactly what happened. Marler, I remember thinking this had big time game of the year vibes in the heat of the moment, but I didn't want to be too reactionary to that, because especially after the day that we had, it was like, by the end of the day, you're like, wait a minute, the 11/noon game, whatever it was, unbelievable. It might've been the craziest thing that happened. No, okay, it wasn't the craziest thing that happened all day. Didn't mean to go there.
It was. It absolutely was. We'll get into the Texas A&M Bama thing here in a minute. Don't get me started on that. Bama should have won that game still, and I'm still pissed about it. Zach Calzada, 13 of 14 in the first half. No, but like this game, like, I hate cliches, and I hate that stupid Buffalo Wild Wings commercials. Like, dude, can we get some overtime? I don't want this game to end. I'm like, that's so ridiculous. You don't want to be at Buffalo Wild Wings. Everybody was saying at this point, and it was almost like like in like Rocky or like any boxing movie that's like completely unrealistic in terms of they're in the 15th round and they're just, we could use them right now for
Rocky
Ukraine.
Is based on a true story.
I don't think you're familiar with the actual Cold War.
Brought down the Berlin Wall.
That's not really, and defeated, I think the Egyptians as well, which is pretty tough. Yeah. You know how they get. So now I've lost my train of thought. Like in like those movies, you know how like they end with like this flurry of like both like boxers just like throwing like haymakers nonstop. That's literally how this game ended. And then every step of the way, it was like if you were writing your own adventure, like if this was written down, I'd be like, this is unbelievable. This is like a stupid, like there's no way this would happen if you wrote the script for it. Like the second to last play with a second left on the game, like they score with no time remaining. Anyway, we'll get into all that, but go ahead.
I was going to say it ended like Rocky IV in that way. Two teams that felt like they were just going blow for blow and they were willing to die.
You hate Arkansas then, huh?
Whoa, no, not comparing
because Arkansas uses illegal steroids for most of their training, from what I've heard, and also loves buzz cuts, high top fades.
The single best training montage ever. Not even close. Rocky IV started with a round 2 knockout. Rest in peace, Apollo Creed.
Which was arguably both of these teams the week before?
Kind of. Yeah.
So
maybe this is Rocky IV. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get into this. The directors, Sam Pittman. Pittman at this time is at the top of all of the SEC Coach of the Year talk. Even though Georgia happened, vibes are still strong with him, and he's still playing the jukebox. Those Texas wins had major juice. Don't forget about Rice. He had 3 of those Texas wins as well.
Forgot about that. That was like not their best game though, right?
It was not. The second half was really good though. Very impressive in the second half. Pittman enters this game as the SEC's biggest home run hire from the 2020 class of coaches, which consisted of Kiffin, Leach, and Drinkwitz, which nobody would have said that when he was hired. And maybe we probably wouldn't have even said that coming into 2020, but because of the start that he got off to, ending the streak against A&M, beating Texas in the way that they did, that was kind of what we were saying about Pittman coming into this game. Hear me out on this as you fix your glasses. You good? Can you see? That's all right.
Emotionally good.
Okay. Hear me out on this. Remember a few years ago when we came up with, I think it was 4th of July of 2018.
Oh yeah.
We came up, of course you remember that. We came up with who America's team was, right? And I think LSU was who we settled on, which I'd argue things have changed a little bit here and there since then.
Not great,
yeah. Even though Marler is currently wearing an LSU hat for those who are not watching.
I love SEC football, y'all.
Yeah. Marler's also wearing a Come to the Sip shirt, which
is drinking out of a Yeti with a Bama sticker.
Wow. Arkansas underwear, I'm assuming you're wearing.
No, absolutely not. Not wearing any pants. So
hear me out on this. I think Sam Pittman and Arkansas should absolutely be in the discussion for America's team.
Yeah, they are.
They haven't won enough to be hateable, at least not yet. Their best moments are some of college football nostalgia, like these things that anybody can love. Darren McFadden, Felix Jones.
Oh, yeah.
They don't have these entrenched rivalries in the SEC that date back to when your parents were kids, right? Like, I'm not saying they don't have rivalries. They absolutely do. They won all those rivalry trophies, of course, but they don't have these entrenched rivalries that date back so long to the point where you just have this ingrained hatred that you've been taught since birth that you can't like Arkansas.
It's all manufactured a little bit.
Yeah. It is to a certain extent. So the hate isn't quite on that level. And speaking of your parents,
oh God,
not your parents specifically, just parents in general.
Okay.
Sam Pittman not only plays the type of football that everyone's dad would like, but he also looks like the type of guy that your dad works with.
Oh, I was going to say the type of guy that your mom, like your mom would love. Like he is, I said this, I think I said going into the season that Bo Nix was church camp Johnny Manziel. And in the same way, Sam Pittman, I was saying this all season, or the start of the season, Arkansas was LSU light. And it's like in terms of like big picture national championship, Georgia was kind of like that. They were like diet LSU, but they had all the things that LSU didn't have from like the things that they had a likable head coach that everyone loved. And not just because he sounded like a cartoon bear that was let out of the circus. Like Sam Pittman just has this like very like disarming, just like would love to sit on the front porch and hear this guy tell stories all day. Like there's not a more likable coach in the SEC.
Agreed. Oh, there's Sam at the company picnic. He's got his floppy hat on. He's probably manning the grill, doing something like that.
He's definitely manning the grill.
Oh yeah, come on. He's boss hog. Of course he is. Arkansas is America's team. I'm throwing it out into the world. Take people listening to this might disagree with that. That's okay.
Oh, like right now?
Yeah, I think Arkansas can, if and when that title is up for grabs, which it always is. It's college football. That's the way it works. Arkansas is America's team. Just saying. Okay,
so here's what I'll say. In going into this game, Sam Pittman coming into the season was 7-3 against the spread the year before in the all SEC schedule. It was the best record against the spread in the entire SEC. He opens up the season with, I doubted him. I don't know if you did, but it seemed like the entire country it was a feel-good story and you just kept waiting for the wheels to fall off. It was like Davidson in like the tournament when they had Steph Curry. Like they played Texas week 2. And I remember talking to our buddy Ty about this. You kind of could sense the Rice game was going to be not great because I don't know if I've seen a fan base more amped up for a non-week 1 game all offseason like they did for Texas. They're an underdog at home, 6 points, and they end up just dominating and shutting down Steve Sarkisian's offense, and it was awesome. They stormed the field, a huge party on Dixon Street. It was awesome. Next week they play Georgia Southern, whatever, and then they got to play A&M in Dallas, and they're an underdog again. And what do? They absolutely shut down A&M's offense. They have 20-10 win. They finally get that monkey off their back. So now he's owned the state of Texas. He's got a top 10 win on the road against A&M. He is what I call the September coach of the year. And you could argue in the SEC last year, they had one for each month. He was September.
Yeah.
Harsin who was in October?
Harsin would have probably been in the conversation, but it's a little bit tougher because the Georgia game was also in October.
Yeah. Okay. Beaver was in November. So, or maybe Heupel, I don't know. Anyway, but you come into this game and even after the win against A&M, you're like, okay, but at some point, they were a top 10 team. You knew it was going to I knew it was going to happen against Georgia. They were not built for that. But you just kept waiting each week. It's they would still, no matter what they did the week before, you would not give them the credit they deserved, and Sam Pittman the credit he deserved, and that whole team and KJ Jefferson and all of it. And here you come into this game, and once again, you're an underdog on the road. And also, you're talking about the 2 coaches in the SEC that can seemingly do no wrong at this point.
Speaking of that, Lane Kiffin could do no wrong coming into this one, despite what happened the week prior to this game.
Yeah.
Get your popcorn ready. for many coaches would have been just beyond infamous. And to a certain extent, it is with Lane.
Oh, it is. Yeah, for sure.
But he turns it into a joke at his own expense. Like,
they did a promo.
Didn't they give away popcorn to the first 1,000 fans at this game?
Like 6,300 like students or what do you call it? Yeah, like it was like immediately he made a joke of it, and like that's it's like the gym thing. Like when you're trying to tell Michael, like, just make fun of yourself so they don't do it.
Yeah, and I mean Lane just never takes an L, and even when like a reporter who is into fitness, when a reporter that's like into fitness asks him about his weight loss, he manages to make sure that he's not really taking an L. Whatever.
That was uncomfortable for everybody. That was your Joe Moorhead moment. It was not an egregious question, but he did not handle that well.
He did not. And I quoted his own tweet. It was his own tweet that put it out there. I have nothing against the food of the state of Mississippi. I'd like the record to be shown. I want that to be known.
Actively posting thirst traps, and if anybody in whatever, but that was like the first, again, like maybe like crack in the foundation, chink in the armor was the week before, because these two coaches, like Lane Kiffin was like hated amongst everyone like a decade ago, and now he's turned that entire thing around, and you have so much likability going into this game, like where you almost lost somebody lose Matt Corral and like all of it except for DJ Durkin.
I kind of wonder if Lane was at his best because of how bad Bama went a week earlier. And he really went back to the drawing board because Ole Miss was scheming all day in this one. I mean, that last touchdown, could he have been more wide open on that play?
How does that happen? It's against the second ranked pass defense in the country. We'll get to it.
At the time. Yeah, for sure. I mean, Monteric Brown, who was clutch all year for him, bid on this fake, and we'll get to that play later. But Ole Miss was scheming all over the place, and the guy that they were scheming with, let's go to the A-listers, Matt Corral, the guy that you just brought up, peak form at this point, pre-injury. I've already said all I can say about Corral except for this. Right. I wish I could just take his 2020 Bama performance and switch it with his 2021 Bama performance. Why? And it could be the same result. Why? Because I think that would have potentially given him momentum to get to New York. And I know I still would have rather had Will Anderson there, in my opinion, because I thought he deserved it more. But it would have made sense because it would have made this game feel that much better for him nationally. It would have been like, oh, hey, yeah, he lost to Bama, but he looked ridiculously good in it. And it's not that he was even bad against Bama, but I wish that we could have kind of switched those two games because I think the Heisman conversation would have been more interesting.
So, and I don't because of how much he trailed off at the end of the year with all the injuries and stuff like that. But I will say this, going back to the week before, Arkansas goes on the road and gets beat 37-0. Georgia was up like 21-0, like in the first quarter. It was a beat down of beatdowns.
It was over the first three drives.
It was, yeah. It was, and honestly, maybe the first two. And you talk about like KJ Jefferson was 8 of 13 for 65 yards. Traylon Burks had 3 catches for 10 yards. I mean, Georgia ran the ball. I think Stetson Bennett had like 70 yards passing. They just ran the ball like at will, like 56 times that day, and just dominated from start to finish. And I don't think if Kirby didn't love Sam Pittman so much, that game probably could have gotten a lot worse. On the other hand, like that was a situation of being like outmanned and outmatched from like a talent standpoint. Lane Kiffin came into that game against Bama with a week off to prepare. Coming off a game against Tulane where like they were averaging over 50 points a game. They had the number one scoring offense, number one, total yards in the first half of games, which is important, and the full game in the entire country. And as soon as they got the ball first against Bama, and right off the bat, Corral's like, a 14-yard completion. That was the most uncharacteristic Lane Kiffin play calling, offense, like whatever you want to say, like I've ever seen. It was like a guy that's so comfortable in his own skin and is one of the best offensive minds, probably him and Sark in the entire country. He overthought the shit out of that, man. It was like watching me do something like for work. He came out in like 16 play drive. He had 4 fourth down attempts in the first half, and 2 of them were in his own territory. I say all that because that was something we didn't expect. We kind of expected the Arkansas thing. Corral didn't have a bad game, but they had, I think I counted it earlier, it was 25 of 32 or 25 of 33 plays in the first half went for 5 yards or less. And you're talking about an offense that just thrived on chunk plays. They were just dinking and dunking everywhere. And by the end of the first half, you've been held to your lowest points, yards, and rushing yards since he got at Ole Miss.
And the game was over. The Bama game.
Yeah, it was 28-0. The game was over. And listen, even as a Bama fan, it was great to watch as a fan, but it's like, I didn't want to see that. Like, you want to see like Lane be Lane. So he comes back into this game and now Lane's being Lane.
Yeah. This game with Lane and with Corral, the bounce back, all those narratives are there, but this kind of summed up why, in my opinion, he was one of the SEC's better quarterbacks of the last decade. I think if you're making,
I think you're right.
He's not top 4, top 5 or something like that. Probably maybe somewhere in that 5 to 10 range. He's going to end
maybe best non-Heisman besides maybe Tua.
Yeah, I put Tua in that category as well. Just if you're just looking at the SEC, because I mean, if you're a great quarterback in the SEC, you're Cam, you're Manziel, you're Burrow, you're winning the Heisman Trophy.
Tua should have won the Heisman too, but we don't have to get into that.
Kyler Murray.
He came in leading the SEC in rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, and then was brilliant in that regard with his legs. I mean,
yeah,
he went from year to year. He went from being the guy who had individual games in which he could do nothing right.
This game.
To instead, this game last year is, I mean, he was a guy who could do nothing right. Like everything went wrong. And then in a game like this, he was just one step ahead every single time. No situation ever fazed him. No pressure. It just didn't matter. And when he ran through Jalen Catalon, we're going to have more thoughts on that in a minute.
Oh, yeah.
Mercy. I mean, I am going to miss watching Matt Corral play the quarterback position at the college level because the NFL's a crapshoot. Who knows what's going to happen with him there? But man, he was fun to watch in college.
It was, it was not his best look in his first appearance to the world when he took his helmet off and was trying to fight everyone in the Egg Bowl.
I didn't hate it.
I knew back then, in the same way that I loved when Baker Mayfield tried to run from the cops. I was like, that's my dude, because now that's a dumb move to try to run from the cops, but that's the kind of confidence I want my quarterback to have is I can outrun these guys for sure. Absolutely, Farva. And then Matt Corral, I mean, he's a very attractive, I'm not going to say pretty boy, but a very attractive kid from California that's coming down to the SEC. And I didn't know if he was going to fit in. He was playing behind John Rice Plumlee the year before. And he finally gets the right system in place and a coach that got behind him. And there's Chizik and Cam for sure, but it felt like Chizik was kind of not riding Cam, but you know what I mean? They weren't these two seemed like they were best friends.
Yeah. Oh, very much. Right? And I think, and that was something, I mean, I wrote about that at the start of 2020, where it was 2 games into his season. I remember writing why Matt Corral all of a sudden looks like the perfect quarterback for Lane Kiffin and why they've become, why they've been able to play off of each other and why that relationship has just worked so unbelievably well. But he was brilliant in this game.
Real quick, he came into this game, or I think he had the second most touchdowns in the first 3 games of an SEC for an SEC quarterback in the last 25 years, only second to Tim Couch. He was the leader for the Heisman race, or 1-2 with Bryce at that point. And then he also has, I think he had 14 total touchdowns, or no, he had 16 total touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He's averaging, even after the Bama game, 342 total yards per game, over 300 yards per game. Just, it was like you said, it was so much fun to watch.
Treylon Burks, the Arkansas receiver. You know what I just thought about? I love a good sliding door. Big fan of that. Is there a chance after Burks' freshman year that he leaves Arkansas if Arkansas runs it back with Chad Morris? Keeping in mind,
everyone should have.
I mean, at the time, undergrads, he would have had to sit out a year and waste a year of his athletic prime, which say what you will about that. But also at the same time, if there's ever a waiver that should be granted for a hardship, it's having to play in a Chad Morris offense.
Well, and that goes back to saying the same thing with Pittman, and not enough can ever be made about how quick this turnaround was, from where the depths of how awful the program, where the program was. I mean, you're talking about they're 3 coaches removed or 2 coaches removed from who was that raspy voiced
John L. Smith.
John L. Smith, who was like literally cutting his grass and was like, yeah, I'm free this weekend. I'll coach your team. Like he comes in there and just a massive uphill like climb and battle. Yeah, Treylon Burks, and Treylon Burks wasn't even the most highly sought after receiver in that class.
And he should have been.
Yeah,
he should have
been. Big on Trey Knox. I'm still not over it.
Pet smart man himself.
That's right.
Treylon Burks was a 3-sport athlete. Could have been like a 4-sport athlete. I mean, and could have done probably all those things at the collegiate level. And it's just an unbelievable talent who really developed. But, you know, I think it's really interesting to kind of look back on that chapter. Because obviously in-state guy and Sam Pittman, I mean, I asked Sam Pittman, like, did you have to sell Treylon Burks when he came in the door? He's like, no, I didn't have to sell him. He loved the program and all those different things. But if you had to play the Chad Morris offense and you saw what it looked like in year 1, man, oh gosh.
There's a reason why he would go hog hunting and not take anything but a knife, because he had to get that aggression out. Why is my nose so red?
True. I don't know. You're like Rudolph.
Yeah,
I think you're good. Don't worry about it.
Treylon Burks, though, consistently just incredible and like just such a wide array of skills. And it's seemingly a guy that feels like we still got, like, you know, was kind of underrated and overlooked.
We got the Treylon Burks hand storylines. Big fan of that. I love it when it comes up every single game about how he wears 5XL gloves, but Nike only makes the 4XL gloves. So he's too big for the gloves that he wears, all those things. And then we got the rundown of how big his hands are. In case you were wondering, his hands are 10.25 inches compared to the average male, which is 7.6 inches. Julio Jones is 9.5 inches. Odell Beckham is 10 inches. And then Shaq is the only one that actually trumps Treylon Burks at 11.75.
Khloe Kardashian, if you saw that picture on Instagram that went viral with their skeleton fingers.
Oh.
Yeah, you said they only make a 5XL. That's like a Magnum size glove for him. Good for him.
Move right past that. Grant Morgan, the Arkansas linebacker. This game the previous year was when he became an A-lister for the entire state of Arkansas because it was the one-arm bandit game. Of course, we talk about Matt Corral having the 6 interception game, and Grant Morgan was a huge piece of that because he owned Matt Corral. Different story in this game this year, but he did still play just such a massive role in elevating the floor of Sam Pittman's team in year 1 and year 2, really. Yeah. I mean, you look at some of the plays that he made, and I don't know what exactly his NFL future is. Frankly, I don't care. His legacy is safe.
Right.
We had him on the pod. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that, like, you just expect those kind of numbers to fall off at some point, right? Like, you can't have double-digit tackles every single week. And of course he does. I actually put the entire linebacking core because they were all
Bumper Pool, Hayden Henry. Yeah.
Yeah. They all had 10 plus tackles in this game. And they all kind of seemed like they were the same person, probably just because they were like, you know, like all 6-year seniors that were white and like just gritty, all the scene, like the NFL combine, like adjectives that you want to throw out there. They were all
lunch
those
pail.
things, but yeah, I mean, Grant Morgan is a lunch pail guy, but yeah, man, like he was an incredible talent. You were saying you had him on the pod.
And one of the things that I reminded myself was that at so many different points in his career, he could have just decided that it wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's a cliche. Yes. I mean, recruited by Bielema, never played, he finally gets put on scholarship by Chad Morris, but he had an entirely new defense to learn going into year 5. And keep in mind, by the time that he starts his year 5, Arkansas has gone over 1,000 days without an SEC win. But I mean, like,
Chad Morris is gone at this point? Or is he still blowing spit bubbles in the corner?
No, that's Chad Morris is gone. Chad Morris is gone. This is year 5 was his 2020 season. And I just wonder how many times that guy thought to himself, you know, I could just be a married guy. I could go on.
Married.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's been married for a while. I could just like go live a great life in the state of Arkansas. And I am so glad that he stuck it out, not just because we got to see his impact on the field, but because he got to reap the benefits of NIL and he gets a free house for life. Talk about living a good life in the state of Arkansas.
A free house for life?
Yeah.
That's incredible. No, that was, he's like, you know, I kind of get tired of like the whole walk-on story every single year because I feel like it's always at Arkansas, and I'm probably just saying this because I'm jaded because the Stetson Bennett the fourth talk in from my recent memory, but he was a guy that honestly, like, again, it was like just a another Dejon Harris, man. Just a tackle machine each and every week. Didn't he have like 28 tackles in a game or something stupid?
I don't think it was 28, but I think he got 20. I think he got 20 once.
He had 19 against LSU the year before.
He's everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. And really fun to watch. Great dude. I love the fact that he also says Arkansas.
I hate that.
I always like it hearing him say that. If I said that, it'd be really weird, but hearing him say it,
yeah,
dude, you are Arkansas. Like you are allowed to say that. The breakout performance. Did you have any other A-listers?
No, so I had the same A-listers, but I had some different breakout performers.
Okay. Yeah, because I think how many breakout performers do I have? Oh, I only have the one. Do you want to start with your breakout performers first?
Yeah. So, and I know we both had KJ Jefferson, obviously, and I'll get into that in a second, but I threw in Dontario Drummond into this. Okay. He was in like a well-known name, but he only had 2 career 100-yard receiving games coming into this game. Not a lot of touchdowns. Also threw in Braylon Sanders. That's a name. He's been there forever, right?
Ever.
Like he was a 5th-year senior. I'm assuming he had injuries early on.
Yeah, he was a 2017 recruit.
Yeah.
So he was recruited by Hugh Freeze. Like he was a Hugh Freeze guy, like signed when Hugh Freeze was still the head coach. That's how old he is.
Right. And he had only 2 100-yard games in his entire career, and one of them was against Southern Illinois in 2018.
Shout out to Salukis.
That's right. I think that's Northern Illinois, right?
Nope.
That's the Huskies.
Southern Illinois is the Salukis. I had my aunt and uncle went there.
No, Michael the Burner Turner went to NIU.
My dad sold Michael Turner a car. True story.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fun fact.
Let's see here. So he ends up having only 200-yard games, like I said, and one's like in 2018. Huge performance in this game. Like it was like obviously the compliment they've been waiting for, I think, with Drummond, because as explosive as that offense has been, it wasn't really like it wasn't like the years in like 2018 when you have like, AJ Brown and DK Metcalf and all that kind of stuff. The other one, I was really surprised you did not list, like strictly from, I'm assuming it's because he's the way he spells his name. Snoop Connor.
I love Snoop Connor. Huge fan. Whenever he would have a big run, Will and I would text back and forth different Snoop Dogg gifts. True story.
Oh,
big fan. Big fan. Big fan of Snoop Connor. And I didn't have him in here because I thought he had kind of broken out a little bit earlier. That was the only reason. But this might have.
He broke out earlier when he had. Let's see. Let me just bring this up here. Connor, coming into this game, he had 137 total rushing yards in the season on 26 carries and 4 touchdowns. I think he had in his career, he only had 2 100-yard games in 26 career games coming into this. Right, big 4-star recruit.
Yep.
He only had 3 games with multi rushing touchdowns. Comes into this game and just goes off. As like they almost had 3 100-yard rushers in this game, with Corral going up for like 80 or 90.
Yep.
But like I said, he comes in this game with not the best resume, I think, long-term. One of those 100-yard games is against Bama the year before. But you're talking about coming off a week where 4 carries for 12 yards against Bama, like just not even a heavy workload. And then has the highest yards per carry, or I guess like yards per, rushing yards per carry, almost 10 per carry in this game, has a career long 51-yard rush, has a 33-yard rush as well.
I should have had him.
I didn't realize, like, after I saw him against Louisville and the way he just like bullied that one kid in the end zone, I didn't realize he had the speed.
That's why I didn't have him. That's exactly why, right there, because I remember very specifically after Louisville, I said, I will not be someone who underestimates Snoop Connor. And in my brain,
saying that. I'm serious.
So I made a mental note, and it's an omission, because like you look at the numbers and you're exactly right. He is breakout performer. I love any guy that makes the crowd make that kind of noise. Like when he gets a big time run, and it's Snoop.
Right.
Luke, big advocate of that as well. Anybody named Luke gets that kind of love from a crowd.
Matt Luke, former head coach, Ole Miss football.
I hope Matt Luke's doing well. Oh, he's doing well.
I'm sure he is. No, I love the Snoop thing as well. And let's get into the KJ Jefferson thing, just because I don't think
people forget like the way his season ended
compared to how it started. And I only know one person in the world that was high on this kid, which was our former coworker, Michael Wayne Bratton, said he thought he might be a top 3 quarterback in the league coming into the season. And you know how like some of our predictions with top 3 quarterbacks have been in the past, mainly me. But it's not the fact that he obviously had like the athleticism and like the talent, like to do what he did later in the season. And he was a tremendous quarterback that got better and better. It seemed like each week, huge game against Bama. But coming into this game, he had more rush attempts than completions in each of his last 2 games. He hadn't attempted 20 plus passes in a single game that season against a Power 5 school. He's coming off a game against Georgia where he was 8 of 13 for 65 yards. The A&M game, he was 7 of 15, like for 212 yards, and Traylon Burks accounted for 6 of those 7 completions
and got hurt
167 of the yards.
Yeah, there was some skepticism about KJ Jefferson in September, and if you recall the offseason storylines, this is something that's been pretty well documented about whether or not he was in shape, and it's kind of all but confirmed that he wasn't in shape. And so, I mean, Sam Pittman has said he is not the same guy Monday through Friday that he is on Saturdays. And look,
heard that, brother.
Who isn't? I mean, come on, what are we talking about here? But this game was when they needed him to step up in this sort of way. And even though he had the bad Georgia game, he had a bum leg in that one as well. It was not 100%. It wasn't making a difference in the result of that game, of course. Right. But this is when Arkansas really realized that they had their guy. Remember, week removed from Georgia, ugly.
8 total touchdowns coming in this game, and four of those were against Georgia Southern and Rice. You go ahead.
He didn't score in that Texas game, which is a crazy thing.
Had an interception too.
Yeah, 40 points in that game, and he didn't score. But this is when they see him take that next step because he's back in his home state for the first time. He's a Mississippi boy. He's 30 miles from where he grew up, which they said ad nauseum on the broadcast. He had
over and over again.
But what I did love was when they kept showing his mom, and I think it was like her sisters or something like that, or friends, or people that he grew up with or something, and they're all rocking these epic custom KJ Jefferson t-shirts that are just all they're amazing. I mean, they're unbelievable. They're definitely not like an NIL deal. They're one of those like go to a t-shirt store, get a collage of as many KJ Jefferson shots.
Like the opposite of when somebody like dies in the hood, like when you get the airbrush t-shirt, like RIP. Yeah, I told you, remember, like when I was at Houston's that one time in 2015, Laquan Treadwell's dad came in.
Yes, I remember that story. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was wearing the same things like bedazzled.
Yeah. The second that Katie George brought that up on the pregame, we should have known that he was in for a big day. And boy, was he ever. I mean, going toe to toe with one of the Heisman frontrunners at the time on the road, left it all on in the field. I said coming into the year that I thought he would be like Big Ben when the play broke down. And in some ways he is, because he can throw dudes off him. Wait, say that again?
I hate what you're about to say so much.
I'm actually going to say that he's wrong, but I think that he does things that are Big Ben-esque with throwing guys off of him, and he's just a load to bring down with his size and all those different things. But where I was dead, like we see him with the jump pass, even when he decides to do things like that, and it's just all over the place. It's more early Ben than late Ben. But I was so wrong on how special he could be when he decided to tuck it and run beyond the line of scrimmage. And for all the talk in fall camp about the out of shape stuff, the fact that he played as well as he did for 4 quarters in a game like this is a testament to where his conditioning got to by that point in the season. Like,
okay, I definitely thought you were going to do the Cam thing. And
no, we're getting to that, buddy. We're getting to that. Actually, you know what? I'll just ask you the question. Over under 20 seconds into the game until we got a Cam Newton comp for KJ.
I didn't even hear that. I thought it was just you making the comp.
No, God, no. I have spoken out against that. I cannot stand it. No. Nobody's getting. So
I misremembered that because I was like, that's why I was fearing you were going with it, and it couldn't be more different. By the way,
under is the under hit. It was under 20 seconds into the game, and so Greg McElroy
would want to not bring that guy up ever.
Yeah. But hey, here we are. We know why it's happening. He wears number 1 like Cam, but very different play. The 10-yard run. Oh yeah, because he was 2 in college. Okay, but he was 1 in the NFL, so it's different. Right. But he was 1 in the NFL, so people make that lazy comparison as well.
Let's stop talking about Cam.
Let's stop. KJ, the 10-yard run that he has where he just fakes out 3 dudes on that touchdown. Unreal. Fakes out Chance Campbell as well. Gets into the end zone to tie it up with 1:22 left. I became a KJ guy after this game. I did. I said, I love it. I don't know what the future holds. Yeah. I don't know that he's ever going to, I don't even know that he's ever going to be an all SEC guy, but I want that guy on my team because he wins football games. Simple as that.
You know, the quote I always bring up from Gary Danielson, and I know everybody hates him for whatever reason, but
Gary loves the Cam Newton thing.
That makes sense. That makes me hate him. But like, he said this, like, I think it was like some game, like where like AJ, it might have been like 2012 LSU Bama. And he was like, there's always one game a season, and it's usually on the road where, you know, your quarterback's just got to go out there and win you a ball game. And I know they lost this game, but that's what this was in every sense of the word. And the fact that he came in, like this is a defense that got pretty good throughout the end of the year for Ole Miss. Like this wasn't like the just absolute torched, not even bend but don't break, like bend over and break defense that they ran the year before. And he comes into this game and like, I think everyone thought it was going to be Traylon Smith and Traylon Burks all day. And he was fantastic at spreading the ball around. Like you said, running the football. This game in particular, we saw what he did later on, but this was like, this might've been one of the best quarterback battles, like for each team since when? Maybe Tua and Burrow. Like, I don't even know if that was like great.
Man, it's up there. Yeah, I'm
trying to think.
Tua wasn't peak Tua that game. Like he was good. He wasn't.
No, it's a good point. He was not. He has ankle injury, and we're not going to get into it. But what other game would it be?
Man,
Manziel, did he go up against anybody?
Manziel
and AJ weren't like.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. 2013.
Yeah, that's true. That might have been like those LSU Georgia games, like from 2013, I feel like, with Murray and Mettenberger and stuff like that, but it didn't have the feel that like both those quarterbacks were the reason why this was happening.
Trask, Mac Jones, SEC championship is another one that comes to mind.
Yeah, that's fair too.
I'm not saying that's definitively better, but there's probably some, and some might even go like 2018, 7 overtime, Kellen Mond, Joe Burrow, but that's like different because it's overtime and whatnot. But it's a great point.
But all those games also going into them, you kind of thought that that's what you were going to get. Like that was the buildup. This game, you just had Matt Corral.
And then it just happened before our eyes, and it was beautiful.
It was beautiful.
The prominent extras, Jeff Lebby, Kendall Briles, synonymous with one another. Lebby, for those who don't know, if you didn't hear on one of the broadcasts like a billion different times throughout the season, married to Briles' sister, Staley. And I'm going to say it, and I'm a Jeff Lebby guy, supporter of his offense and all things related to that. He does not have I've been married for 10 years vibes. He has, I got married in my mid-30s after I stopped sleeping in my office vibes, but not I've been married for 10 years vibes. Is that fair?
I'm a big Lebby and honestly Briles guy, not a big marriage guy as much. So that for me, like Lebby was like, I hated that entire, I didn't hate like the story because it was kind of cool. And I don't think I knew it going into the game, but like, it was another thing ad nauseum. And you would think that this was not like a blowout where it's like, all right, we got to fill the space here, man. Like, what are we going to say? There was a ton of things they could have been saying. That's
a production thing though. They had the picture ready to go. If you watched this game over, you saw the picture of them shirtless together when they were in elementary school playing Sega. Shout out to Sega. Yeah. Great video game system that gets lost in the shuffle, but big time Spider-Man meme type of game with these offenses. Yeah. And they're trying to do the same things. They have the Baylor principles, Arkansas a bit more run heavy than Ole Miss was, but both want to go with tempo. They spread teams out. They get those chunk plays in the passing game. And in many ways, those guys were the reason why this turned into such a horrendous day for defense and why by the end of it, it just felt like both of those defenses were running on fumes and they had nothing left to give, all because of the offenses that they had.
In many ways, I would say like all the ways.
In all the ways, probably in all the ways. Yeah, that's right.
I love the way that you said the thing they were running on fumes too, because we're going to get into the Barry Odom talk like we always do. But also, I think this is where we first saw, this is like the debut premiere, the world premiere of Lane Kiffin being a little bit of an a-hole and telling his players to lay down on the ground when the other team went hurry up. It happened one time in the final drive, and he it was like the nose tackle, like at least be a safety, like somewhere away from the play. The guy in the very center of your defense was like, I got a cramp, and then just proceeded to lay down like he was kindergarten nap time.
I have gotten into beachside chairs more aggressively than what this person, this lineman got when he dropped to the ground. And you're just like, oh my God, I clipped it. I remember clipping it right then and there. I wasn't asking my brother to like rewind the TV very much at his house, but I'm like, I can't not get that clip. Oh, sniper got him.
But again, like, yeah, right. But again, like, it didn't happen often, I don't feel like. And the next week they played Tennessee, and that's when it happened like over 40 times. I will say, was that those all your extras?
I had two more here. You already touched on Barry Odom. We're going to get to Barry Odom. I had one other one besides that.
Go ahead.
Okay. John Rice Plumlee, Ole Miss receiver. I have replayed Plumlee's career in my head, wondering if there would have been an ideal version of it besides just replaying it with Rich Rod's offense, right? Like, yeah, he was a more athletic Nick Fitzgerald. That's for me kind of what he was. I don't think there is a version at the Power 5 level that makes a ton of sense where we get to see peak Plumlee play out that way. Any other scenario other than staying in the exact offense he was in 2019. Because as fun as Auburn would have been, there was just zero world in which he would have transferred to Auburn because Bo Nix, same class, so that wasn't happening. Plumlee would have been so much better 10 years earlier.
I was going to say, like, in a Pat White type offense from West Virginia, but that makes sense. Rich Rod.
And also Michigan, he would have been unbelievable as an NCAA 2014 player because I think he's got a lot of Denard Robinson in him. And that's
because of the hair.
Rich Rod, who, yes, definitely because of the hair.
Yeah.
Cannot tell him apart.
I'm going to bring him up later because it's a crazy, we talk about the story arc of this game, his career. It's just, it blows your mind.
It's all over the place.
It wasn't because of injuries, but
yeah, I know, it's weird. And it's like, it's something that I just don't think would have happened 10 years ago. So like, I guess I just want him to go back in time and be Tate Forcier, who famously got the nod over Ryan Mallett, which prompted him to go to Arkansas. See, got us back on track.
I like that. Okay. Before you get into Barry Odom, and I just absolutely begin to our biggest argument of the day, maybe the year. My prominent extras, Henry Parrish had over 100 yards in this game, like almost the same stat line I told you about Snoop Connor.
Off to Miami.
Warren Thompson, not a huge year, but
had kind of a rough day. Like up until the very end.
Also, like, this is his best performance of the year, caught the game tying, almost game tying touchdown. Raheem Sanders. Everyone thought it was going to be Traylon.
Traylon Smith. Yeah.
Raheem Sanders has over 100 yards in this game. That's going to come up later too. The other extras, Sam Williams, a guy that ends up with double-digit sacks and should have been one of the most talked about players in the league, maybe the country, but he was just overshadowed by Georgia's entire defense and Will Anderson, the same position.
True.
And my last extra is the whole ass defense from both sides, because Connor, 41 total players in this game registered a defensive statistic. 41.
I can't even count that high.
24 from Ole Miss. That is crazy.
Okay, Barry Odom.
Jesus.
I only put him on here so that you could say that he's overrated, because I'm not like an unbelievable Barry Odom stan. I don't necessarily support a ton of 3-2-6 slander, but this was not the best day for him. Not the best day.
No, it was not. I mean, they came in looking like a pretty good defense. They were, like I said, second in the country in the pass defense. That was the strength of their team. You thought.
They had like 23 and 24-year-olds all over the defense.
Yeah. And Jalen Catalon's going to be there for like another 3 years, but like, they weren't great against the run. Like I said, the thing about the Georgia game the week before, gave up 273 yards on the ground and had given up at least 100 yards in 4 of their 5 games coming in. I tell you what, Connor, when you give up 324 yards rushing and 287 yards passing on only 70 plays, That's bad. That's bad. The following week, Auburn lit them up, and Bo Nix had 292 yards to the air. So
it was a rough first game without Jalen Catalon.
Yeah, I don't think that's why, but sure. It gave up almost 500 against Mississippi State. Gave up almost 700 against Bama. He just consistently does stuff where, like, I mean, you look at the year before. You were like really, really banging the drum for him the year before.
And then it fell off down the stretch, and they had depth issues as well with
yeah, they definitely had depth issues. But yeah. I feel like he's a guy. He's almost like a much more likable and younger John Chavis. Maybe he's kind of like a low-key Will Muschamp, like not in terms of the longevity, but like, dude, these defenses has not ranked very high in the country, in the league. They haven't been known for really shutting anybody out. I mean, like the Texas. 10 points they gave. Sure. I mean, yeah.
Texas A&M.
Who didn't shut them out? They got beat by Kansas last year. I love Sark, but I mean, like A&M had Zach. Okay, I know this is going to come back to bite me in the ass because of what Zach Calzada did against Bama. But he didn't do that against. I checked every week. He didn't do that against anyone else the entire season. He shut down a backup quarterback. He's just not for me. I love him to death. He's a great guy. But I don't know why you like him so much.
Fair enough. Let's go on to the story arc. Favorite line from the broadcast. On the call, just to paint the scene here. Paint the scene? Yeah, sure. Joe Tess. Say it again.
Set the scene?
Set the scene. Yeah, sure. To set the scene.
Paint behind the onion.
Yeah, paint behind the onion. We have Joe Tess, Greg McElroy. Joe Tess is SEC Gus Johnson.
I love that. I love when you said that. Yeah, that's perfect.
Both should be calling nighttime games. And I get weirded out when they're on there for like a noon game.
Yeah.
Having said that, this game gradually got to the proper level of Joe Tess excitement. It did. Eventually, it took a bit.
Real quick, and you said seeing him in the daytime. I'll never forget my dad telling me this when I was in college. He's like, I was like drinking during the day one day. He's like, just be careful because being day drunk is a little bit different than being drunk at night. And I was like, what does that mean? It's the same thing. Who cares? And I was like, oh, this is weird. All of the lights are on outside. What is happening? And that's kind of like exactly what I feel like with Joe Tessitore. Also, the greatest nickname of all time that I gave Tom Hart last year, which was Joe Lessitore.
It's pretty good. It's not your best. It's pretty good.
Yeah, that's fair. Anyway, though, he was good for a lot of good quotes in this game.
My favorite was KJ Jefferson could make himself a sandwich with that protection. It's pretty good.
I couldn't find that one. I didn't hear that one.
That's the afternoon Joe Test that I want. Mid-play, he's kind of relaxed. He's not overselling it. He's not
remind you to go get a sandwich.
Yeah, which at that time of day, thank you, Joe Test. That was really important. I don't want to get up and leave in the middle of this unbelievable game, but thank you for giving me that reminder. I like that when he's a little bit more kind of calm in the moment as opposed to post-touchdown where the crowd's going nuts. I don't always need Joe Test to be on 11. I don't always need
dogs are barking first. That's still one of the greatest calls I feel like of all time.
It's very good. It's very good. There's a time and a place for Joe Tess. Not every noon game requires Joe Tess energy.
It's also weird that he's with McElroy because personality-wise, those two, like McElroy got up and like a different octave than I've ever heard. Like one time in this game, and it was one of the most uncomfortable things. It was like watching two white guys or like a white guy trying to like dap somebody up, like in the inner city. Like, it's like, you're definitely not going to like, don't do this. You're going to do the weird paper beats rock, like fist engulfing. It's going to weird everyone out. Do you know what it was?
Are you talking about when he made the cringeworthy thing? And they've said this on multiple broadcasts. I like ball. You like ball? And they asked, Katie, do you like ball? I was like, why am I listening to a broadcast debate if they like ball? First of all, just no. No, don't need that. I get it. You're having fun. We all are. I like ball. That's a buzzkill, man.
I feel like he likes ball that much either. Also,
I think McElroy likes ball. I just don't need to hear him telling us that he likes ball.
Also want to point out that McElroy, since it's NFL Combine week, we had the same score on the Wonderlic. He was a Rhodes Scholar though, and I took 6 years to graduate. So
sick brag. What was your favorite line?
So my favorite line was, and I had a couple here, and I'll save the least favorite because it's in here as well. All right, first touchdown. Joe Tess says that's the first dagger of the afternoon, which I thought was pretty good foreshadowing, considering like how the game, ended up like turning out. Second quarter, 9 minutes left. It's 2nd and 6. Raheem Sanders has a 21-yard run. It's still just 14-14. Rocket Sanders with a little bit of rocket fuel off the right side. Perfect. When the opening line of the game, or the broadcast, which was game day ends, and I think they're in Iowa for Iowa Pitt State, from Corso and the land of deep fried everything to this, and they just panned to the Grove, which is like enough said. You don't even need to like use words for it. It's just beautiful. Low key, the best line, Lane in his post-game interview, we really didn't stop them. They just happened to go for 2. That should be put on a t-shirt, man. After Corral scrambled a first down, Tess said, "Man, is he nifty."
That's what that's where I draw the line.
Nifty's a little bit weird.
Nifty is just, from a play-by-play guy, I just don't need that. I don't.
It reminds me of Andy, the Nifty Gifties thing. That is just, it's too much from that episode of The Office. And then this one just gave me like PTSD from the Ole Miss Auburn game the year before. They're reviewing the second touchdown of the game from Arkansas. It's on the goal line. And you can tell they're trying to sell the drama. Like McElroy is the way he was like speaking, it was like he was watching someone back out like a U-Haul trying to make it under a bridge. He's like, did he get in? Like I don't know. Like, get a better angle, guys. You guys have access to all the angles and all the cameras. And for whatever reason, they start showing the replay on the pylon cam. Why does Ole Miss have just the grainiest, shittiest Zapruder film technology always? You saw it the year before with what's his name, with Tank Bigsby and the ball that hit off his pinky. You couldn't. The closer they got, the worse the actual visual was. It made no sense at all. So
I think the rain had something to do with that with Tank the year before.
Yeah, I'm honestly, I can tell this was just me projecting. And my least favorite line was when Burks makes the first of 2 catches in the third, which we're going to bring up
37-yard catches, yeah.
McElroy says, "You got mossed." And it was more uncomfortable than, I don't know, me trying to rap at like a middle school talent show. It was very uncomfortable. And also it wasn't accurate, because isn't like when you, like the whole moss thing is like going up over somebody.
Yeah. And it was a play in which his body was in front of. So
both of them were.
Yeah. So agreed. That's maybe my problem.
Like ball, man.
Yeah. I love ball. You love ball? That's maybe my problem sometimes with them, is it just feels like they have these lines in their back pocket. Mm-hmm. And I don't always need that. That game was going to sell
RG3.
Yeah. Oh gosh. RG3, that's a different subject. Okay. Coldest take from the broadcast. Joe Tess. He says, defense doing their job early here on a sunny day in Oxford, Mississippi.
They were.
The cold take is not that it was sunny. It was beautiful all day.
They had 2 punts to start the game.
That was when that happened. Both teams had scoreless drives. Little did Joe Tess know that 53 points would be scored, and by, I guess, 52-51, and the defenses would definitely not do their jobs. That was pretty rough. The other one from McElroy. This is great. I told you we were going to come back to Texas. Of course we were. McElroy says, where they're talking about like, Arkansas early season momentum, all these different things, and how it was, the Georgia game, it was bad, but whatever, they still liked what they did in September. Right. McElroy says that's one they were very proud of. Arkansas felt like they beat a very good football team that night. Again, talking about Texas, who went 5-7.
But hold on,
but they said that
exact moment. They're up by like 3 scores on Oklahoma. And I remember
14-0
all week, I was like, I kept talking about how Caleb Williams on the road was not very good. No,
he didn't start though.
He didn't start yet. Yeah. But Spencer Rattler had not looked very good. They barely beat a terrible Tulane team. And I was like, Sark is going to come in against this defense that's overrated, this team that's overrated, and they are going to upset Oklahoma. And I was so happy in the first half. Not when I bet the money line for the full game, but it was funny to watch this whole thing play out. And that was one of my coldest takes, was literally anything said about like any other team outside of the SEC that day.
You know, the other one
was that. What was the other one?
On the ticker.
Oh, shut up.
It showed that Alabama and A&M were playing that night. And ESPN had ESPN's very made up FPI, which we agree it's FPI.
Hold on. I'm listening.
It said that Bama had an 86% chance to win.
Connor, the ball didn't hit the ground in the first half of that game from Zach Calzada. His only incompletion was an interception. He had over 200 yards passing, which he didn't do, I think, for the rest of the season. Bama dominated that second half for the first 25 minutes. I don't know what the hell happened in the last 5. Regardless, and it was their fault. They lost. They should have lost that game.
What cold takes you got?
The fact that anybody in that game specifically, and our listeners did this shit in like the Facebook group, and it pissed me off so much. Bama lost to an unranked team. Okay, well, that was literally the only week they were unranked in the last 2 calendar years.
Heel.
Okay, that was one of them. But no, so like this was one of those crazy weekends you saw, like we get like once or maybe twice, like usually I feel like only once a year, where everything was like just turned upside down. Iowa Penn State was a top 5 matchup. Oklahoma was in the top 10. Michigan struggled against Nebraska. BYU was ranked 10th. They lost to Boise State. Baylor and Utah were unranked. Utah gets a big win on the road as an underdog against USC to get to 3-2.
Yeah. God,
and
that's
then
crazy.
You know how that ended. Notre Dame barely beat Virginia Tech with the last second field goal, and Bama loses to an unranked team. The coldest takes I had, they said early on, if Joe Test said in the first quarter, if Arkansas can play within their own identity and do that, they'll be in good shape today. It was after an 8-yard run on 2nd and 6, but it was after an 8-yard run, and their identity was running the football. And KJ Jefferson was a storyline at the end of the game. I know they rushed for 324 yards, but KJ Jefferson was a story at the end. The other one was late in the second quarter. Corral makes it 21-14. McElroy says, coming back from commercial, they're talking about the Heisman, he's going to have some big stages over the next few weeks. And I think I remember tweeting this day, I was like, Lane Kiffin is going to absolutely win Matt Corral a Heisman trophy. Like he's going to like make it a point. And we know how that obviously played out, but like
the Tulane game, especially where he's still out there just slinging it. I love it.
Right. But the fact that like it wasn't like far-fetched to think he was going to be a finalist, that he was going to be, he's projected top 10 pick at this point, and just an incredible season up until this point. The big stages thing, they only played 2 more ranked teams, and one of them was Auburn.
The Bama game was the big stage game that was already in
which was the week before.
Yeah.
So it was like if the big stage games for the rest of the year, they played, I think 3 of their last 6 were on like SEC Network. It wasn't even like nationally televised. So I just didn't understand what he was saying, because you saw it after this game, it just trailed off completely. And I know he was injured, but
Tennessee game.
So I'm trying to
Tennessee after that was where I'd say it kind of trailed off. Okay, that feeds right into my Jadeveon Clowney reminder that normal people don't play this game.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Corral had 2 different instances. Yeah. Oh, of course, you have to. And there are others, but the Corral run where he's going for the 2-point conversion at the and in the second quarter, it's one of those plays where he's rolling to his right, and Arkansas should have been able to stop him. You watch
there was a minimum 4 people there.
At least you watch that from any angle. Give me any angle on the all-22, and I say Arkansas stops him, no issue whatsoever.
Connor, they were angled like they could have just like swept him to the boundary. It made no sense.
But foreshadowing, Arkansas DB bit on a fake from Corral, and Arkansas DB jumps in the air, and he's midair trying to tackle Corral, which is an incredible thing to try and do or think you can do.
Love the effort. Don't leave your feet, though. Don't leave your feet.
Yeah, don't go for the pump fake, man. Corral takes a foot to the face as he's getting tackled, and he still gets in for the 2-point conversion. And when I say that, you think, all right, yeah, you ran through a foot. Go back and watch that play.
No, like a blood sport foot.
Yes. Like not just, oh, hey, his foot kind of nicked him in the helmet. No. Like a full on, I should probably say more so
kicked in the
leg.
face.
He got kicked in the face and still scored.
I mean, yeah. And we saw like that toughness through, I think, the rest of the year. That became the storyline of who Matt Corral was. I feel like
100%.
Like the way the season played out. But I looked at yours before this, and we had the same one. We had this one, and then the Traylon Burks takeover with 3 minutes left in the third quarter. I mean, back-to-back plays for the same amount of yards. I think it was like they were both 37 yards.
37 yards. Yeah. I mean, and then you have on the next play, KJ goes Superman to tie it up on that leap. He took off from the 5-yard line.
Right.
The 5. I remember watching Saquon Barkley take off from like the 4 and thinking, holy crap.
This was a yard further back.
This was a yard further. This is like when you see
I bet he could have gone for 6.
I bet he could have. Shoot, 7.
I mean,
clearly not 8.
I feel like there's once like some of my favorite moments from the season, just in general, not even just like for Arkansas games. And I feel like as soon as it happens, you and I are immediately like prompted. Like was it Pavlov's? Like you're conditioned immediately. Thumbs come out, get on Twitter. It's like Traylon Burks doing Traylon Burks things. Cause I mean, it's not effortless, but it is kind of effortless. And he could just turn a game upside down so quickly, man. It was, God, those were impressive.
He was my answer as well for the Trent Richardson. I can't believe they didn't make it in the NFL, which we can't do for this game. Obviously, we would have to tweak it and do. Instead, I won't believe it if they don't make it in the NFL because.
Oh, I did the ones who like didn't make it in college.
Oh, wow. Yeah. All right. Fire away.
Not like in a negative way.
Okay. I mean, that's basically half a season where they just didn't work out.
No, I mean, like, so Trey Knox.
Okay.
I thought he was going to break out
I see where
day
you're
one. Like, so Jesus, he was a guy that was like coming out of high school. They had these 3 big recruits or big signees. I think they're all receivers, 4 stars or above. And it was when Felipe Franks was transferring. 6'5", 215, top 100 guy, 4-star out of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Freshman year, he has 28 receptions, 385 yards, 3 touchdowns. From day one, he was overshadowed by Traylon Burks. It was clear he was not the best receiver in that class or on the team. But those are his stats his freshman year. The following 2 seasons, 27 total receptions, 211 total yards, 1 touchdown. In the same theme, what is going on upstairs?
Things
Sorry
are
for
happening.
any listeners hearing just this dog and these kids in here at the house. But John Rice Plumlee. Now, I think I was wrong about this, but I thought he was the SEC leading rusher in his freshman year.
No, because he got over 1,000 his freshman year.
Okay, but he was. There were a lot of others. I think he was like 8th.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire would have been more in 2019.
Maybe he was rushing touchdowns in the regular season because he had 12, and I think Najee and Clyde had more, but they also played more games. Either way, he had over 1,000 yards rushing and 12 touchdowns on the ground his freshman year, right? 154 carries, 1,023 yards and 12 touchdowns. He had 5 100-yard games in just 100-yard rushing games in just 9 total games that season. Because that was the one thing we forget. Like, it wasn't like he started the entire season. Right, he came in, lit up Bama, lit up LSU, and it was a lot of fun to watch. He finished his career with 19 total games over the next 2 years, with only 25 carries and 166 rushing yards, 25 receptions and 280 receiving yards as they tried that experiment. Connor, he had 0 touchdowns the rest of his career.
Well, he's at UCF now.
That's just so sad to me.
I know. And every time I would see the pregame picture of Kiffin with John Rice Plumlee, where Kiffin is taking that picture and they tag Levy in it. And so you got to give this guy more carries. And it's really Lane's way of saying, hey, don't transfer. Please don't transfer. You're my emergency quarterback. I would feel bad because 2019 John Rice Plumlee was so fun. We talked about him a lot. He was great. There's a little tiny piece of me that holds out hope that Gus Malzahn can tap into just some of that because the system fit makes total sense.
Oh yeah.
Total sense. And if he can do that at the group of 5 level, like, I mean, he did it as a true freshman in the SEC, he can do it as a 4th-year guy.
I based my entire wrong take about LSU not winning a national title that year because their defense. based off him. So I'm still kind of scorned about that. But yeah, that's what I had. Who'd you have for yours?
Yeah. So answering this question in a different way, that I won't believe it if they don't make him the NFL is Traylon Burks, just because if he flops, I'll be stunned. I mean, the catch radius, the ability to get separation,
man, the speed is underrated.
Like he's going to be able to succeed wherever he goes, as long as he doesn't go to a place where they really have no plans for him and he's buried on the depth chart.
Right.
Like that one, to me, I look at him, a 10-year career, several Pro Bowls. I'll be surprised if he doesn't do that. Corral for me isn't in that same category, just because quarterback, it's so tough to predict. So much of that depends on your surrounding circumstances. So much goes into it, man. Yeah. And so I wouldn't put him necessarily in that category. If you get the wrong coaching staff, you're just kind of screwed, and he could wind up in a situation like that. Okay. The thing you didn't know / remember until rewatching / researching this. What do you got for this one?
Texas A&M was unranked, Connor. No, I'm kidding. Right. So that it didn't go to overtime. I just assumed it did. And also that the second to last play, I don't know if it was peak SEC officiating or the opposite, but it was like, I thought for sure it was going to be pass interference. And KJ Jefferson just like floats this pass. There's no way that there was 1 second left on the clock. There's absolutely no way.
Lane thought time expired for sure.
Oh,
like
without
Lane couldn't believe that time did not expire on that play.
Lane went like, again, like we joke about this, like the Dan Mullen thing, like he sometimes would be like me, just like lashing out, projecting and stuff like that. Like the same way I watch Bama games, like that's how he would coach at times. Lane went from throwing his clipboard up and being like just elated and the happiest guy on earth to like literally a minute and 11 seconds later, screaming at the officials for something he wasn't even close to being right about. And I'm pretty sure didn't have like he didn't have a single argument to make there. He was just like bitching because he knew that he was possibly going to get beat.
Hometown call though. I thought we were going to get it. I thought that final second was coming off. I watched that play assuming that was it. That was all she wrote. That was their last chance. And instead, here's the take though. I think that game was better because it didn't go into overtime.
Without a doubt.
Way better.
Connor, it had like, again, if you wrote the story, you had 3 touchdowns like in the last like 2 minutes or two and a half minutes, something like that. They were for like a combined 200 and like it was like 75-yard drive, 75 and 65.
Yes.
Like keep in mind, Ole Miss scored with 1:13 to go on a 2-play 75-yard drive. Arkansas got the ball back and had a 9-play drive with only, I think, 2 timeouts.
Yes.
KJ Jefferson just went off. I mean, like I think he was like 7 of 8 on the final drive. But if you're writing this story, they call timeout. You have the kid lay down and take a nap in the middle of the field. The last play where he floats it out of bounds, and there's 1 second left. There's 1 second left, and then he hits what's his name, Warren Thompson, for the touchdown. And the best moment maybe in the history or in the season. I don't want to be like a prisoner of the moment here, but since we love Sam Pittman, you referenced it earlier. As soon as they cut the effing camera to this guy, I mean, just the biggest cojones imaginable. He's already holding up 2. Like that was one of the. I have goosebumps right now. Like Sam Pittman I had no idea he had that kind of like killer instinct in him, and I know it didn't work out, but like no hesitation. We're gonna go get this win right now. I loved it, man. I loved it.
You know what we should do right now? We should cut to Sam Pittman breaking down that exact instance that you just brought up, going for 2, holding up to 2. So let's take a break and cut to Sam Pittman talking about that exact moment for SDS. Can you take me back to the Ole Miss game? Because it's one of the few times that I think I've ever seen a team go for 2, then not get it, and pretty much still have universal support that it was the right decision. You held up to 2 right away. You go back and you watch that, and they're debating on the broadcast. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? And there you are holding up the 2. When was that decision made by you? Because it felt like it came before the drive even started.
Yeah, I can take you through it. I think there was about a minute and a half left. They got behind us. They scored. I think we had, I don't know what it was, maybe a minute 13, something like that when we got the ball back. right when they scored. They hadn't even scored yet. They were running in to score. And I clicked over to KB Kendall and said they did us a favor. And so they scored. We went down. The whole time I just kept saying, well, I got the team together before the drive and said, look, don't come off the field. We're going to go for 2 when we score. We're going to make the 2-point and get out of here. And but we couldn't stop them either. I know they couldn't stop us. We couldn't stop them. And then when we scored on the very last play of the game, there was really no decision to be made. It was, let's steal the game. Let's go home. Look, at some point, I felt like both of us were going to score. And at some point, a 2-point conversion was going to decide the game anyway. And I thought, we've got it. If we score, they can't retaliate and it's over. And so I took the chance, but I knew it as soon as they got behind us and scored with a minute something left in the game. I knew we was going to go for 2 if we were fortunate enough to score.
It's unbelievable because you can say you're going to do something, and then in the heat of the moment, you get maybe in your own head and you say, you know what, maybe we just hold off and we kind of play it to the edge. But you seem to thrive in those moments, and your team has become a lot more familiar with playing in these closer games. And it felt like when the amazing thing, you watch that game back and it's like, wait, 3.5 minutes left in this game, and you guys scored twice on the road against a team that ended up going to a New Year's Six bowl. Where did that kind of show you where your team was? Because I feel like that game really defined kind of what you guys became in the second half, even though ironically enough, it was in the midst of that 3-game losing streak. And it was, of course, just a devastating loss.
Yeah. I think, here's what I'll say. If I tell the team something, I'm going to do it. I mean, that's just how it is. I mean, and so I had thought about that decision, you know what I mean? And so I told them, and once I tell them they're not going to call me a liar. When I tell them that's what we're going to do, and that's the end of it, or I just wouldn't have told them, but I felt comfortable with that. So I was good there. I do think that there is an air of confidence that we have, an air of we are disrespected, an air of blue chip, an air of lunch pail, however you want to look at it. We are all in it together. I wasn't the first choice here. I got something to prove. I have something to prove to the state of Arkansas that they hired the right coach. Our kids have something to prove, that we're not the old Arkansas, that we're one that you don't want to play. And we're not there yet, but we're headed there. And then I said it when I first came here, we want to make the people of Arkansas proud of the football team. And so all of those things are driving forces to have success here. And our kids are bought into every bit of that because that's how we feel. All of us in the building.
I need to pause it. Yeah, I'm up.
Okay. Coming down in 3, 2, 1. Okay. The other thing that I didn't know / remember until researching this, Jerry Neely didn't play in this game. Totally forgot. Was out with a concussion. I forgot because Ole Miss still ran for 324 yards.
Yeah, he was so involved in the week before.
Yes, or at least they wanted him to be involved, and then the concussion happened, and
right.
Yeah, it was rough.
He had 8 touches on the first drive against Bama, like in a 16-play drive. So anyway.
Snip Connor, Henry Parrish, both over 100. Corral at 94, like you said, and 2 scores. Their ground game was awesome. Yeah. Other thing I forgot, Jalen Catalon was totally injured for the majority of that game. Yep. He aggravated his shoulder injury in the first half and then played through it. So Corral threw this bomb, and then Catalon had great coverage on Braylon Sanders, and Catalon broke it up, but he landed on his right shoulder, and they eventually, like, he was out for the year. But I was going to initially have the Jadeveon Clowney reminder that normal people don't play this game as the Matt Corral run through of Jalen Catalon. Yeah. And maybe you could make the argument that it should still be in that category, because it's not like Matt Corral knew Jalen Catalon had this shoulder injury and he still decided, oh, all SEC safety, I'm going to run right through you. I think a healthy Jalen Catalon probably makes a better play on Matt Corral than just getting totally trucked and trying to tackle him with one arm. Right. But I kind of forgot leading up to that play that he was hurt, and it showed that like he was laboring, and he was eventually, he didn't play after this game. He was out for the rest of the year. So just something that kind of slipped my mind that maybe could have had an impact in this game down the stretch. But Catalon's awesome. He's really good. I'm excited that he's back.
One shout out to my host family. They have the Girl Scouts meeting is happening right outside my dwelling.
Cookies?
No, but I forgot to get cookies, but there's like a lot around the house I'm definitely going to take.
Nice.
Anyway, so sorry if you hear that in the background, but the thing that reminded me of the Catalon, because it was very noticeable, and I hate to use like a Bama example, but you remember the Camback game from 2010? What? This is legit.
I just love that the way that you preface that. I hate to use a bad example, but remember the Camback game?
Because I remember like hanging out with this dude like the following day. Mark Barron was one of the best safeties in the country and in college football. Like since the moment he stepped on the field, Cam throws this ball to, I think it was Darvin Adams, like down the left sideline, and it was clearly going to be intercepted by Mark Barron. Like it was just kind of floated. There was no chance he was in position. And I remember he couldn't go up. It wasn't like he didn't make a play on it, but he went up with like his wrong, like opposite hand. And the next day I was like, what the hell was that? And then the guy just, runs to the end zone. The next day he's over at this apartment we were hanging out at, and I went to go like shake his hand, and he like leads with his opposite hand because he had torn his pec muscle off like his chest plate completely. That's why he couldn't lift his hand up. That's why they lost and blew that 24-point lead. But no, it was very noticeable with the Jalen Catalon thing, because you see guys get nicked up and they're like a little bit slower. This was like, it was still a great catch too.
For sure. No doubt about it.
But I think he makes that play.
I think he probably at least slows Matt Corral down instead of just getting totally trucked on that play.
And I meant the deep, like the bomb.
Oh, the bomb. Yeah, that's fair. Just remember next time somebody we're not at Jalen Catalon draft talk yet, but in 2023, that's going to come up and people are going to look at that and try and break that down. But dude was playing through bad shoulder.
Like the Sean Shivers thing. I hate to use another example here, but that Xavier McKinney. But you're right. Like it will get brought up. When did the losing team blow it? We have the same one for this?
I don't know. You could just say,
field.
You could just say that by Arkansas trying the same exact 2-point conversion play that worked earlier, that's when they blew it, and that they shouldn't have assumed that would work twice when Greg McElroy was calling it out, exactly what Kendall Briles was going to do. It was this beautiful little design where KJ goes to his right, and then he kind of fakes the option. And it looks like it's going to be a KJ keeper. And how can you not respect the KJ keeper at that point, given how good he was on the goal line?
Plenty of guys over there, though.
Yeah, they did.
Burks got held up pretty badly.
He did, definitely. And the play before, where they could have made that call. The play before the touchdown in the end zone, where there was still 1 second left on the clock, but everyone kind of was ready for Mr. PetSmart himself, Trey Knox, to get that football where he just stopped at that point. And they knew he was going to be the primary target. And KJ kind of throws back across his body a little bit, and it just doesn't necessarily work.
Sailed on him.
Yeah. I don't think that's fair to say that the offense blew that game though, because they hung half 100 against the top 25 team on the road.
I disagree. And I think the offense did blow it, or whoever, I'm assuming Kendall Briles, had nothing to do with that throw, because that was like his only bad throw of like at least the fourth quarter, man. He was like, hold on, I have it in here at some point, like in the fourth quarter of that game alone, I think he was like on the 3 scoring drives, 10 of 12. He had multiple, you brought up the touchdown run, like with like a minute 17 to go or whatever it was. He finished that drive with like, I think 3 straight 10+ yard runs, including like the touchdown. Like he took over.
Finished
so that
drives,
throw,
yeah.
It was disappointing, I guess, but I don't think it was going to be completed anyway. In my opinion, where they lost it was the third to last drive of the game. So before the rushing touchdown and then before the final drive, KJ Jefferson has gotten to a point where he has taken over, in my opinion, this game on the ground, through the air. Traylon Burks doing Traylon Burks things. Arkansas's third to last drive, they take over their own 25 with 9 minutes left, down 45-38. They open the drive with 4 straight running plays. None featuring KJ.
Okay.
They have two passing attempts after that. Neither were targeting Traylon Burks. And sandwiched in between that was an 8-yard sack. So you have a 7-play drive that is, it took off a decent amount of clock for one. I think you went away from what was working the entire game. I remember one time in 4th grade, Connor, we had to do a math test over double-digit multiplication. It was a 25-question test over 2-digit times 2-digit, 10 times 13, whatever. 25 questions, I got 1 right. And I was really good at math. It was the 13th question in the very middle of the test. I don't know what I did for the first 12 or the last 12. I think I forgot to carry the 0 for every single one of them. I don't know. Should have got a 4 on this test, Connor. But my point is, it's sandwiched in the middle of all the other consistency that you had, and you were doing your offense was working. You were putting up points. I mean, the second half alone, you had 11 of the 14 total drives they were scoring drives. What were you doing? You just completely go away from what works and don't.
What was it like to get that paper back?
But my teacher felt so bad. Dude, I'm telling you, I was really good at math. My teacher she felt so bad. I think she gave me a 38 or something. I was like, this doesn't add up. She's like, oh, you did the math on that one? That makes sense to you? No, to this day, I'm really good at mental math. That was very embarrassing. Also, though, having the second ranked pass defense in the country and giving up your second wide open 60+ yard touchdown, this time with a minute and 7. I don't know how that happens.
Coverage bust, Braylon Sanders. Corral looked off the safety left. Arkansas defensive back Monteric Brown, who was...
Yeah, I know how it happened. I was just kidding about that.
I know. I'm telling the people at home who might not remember.
You get the clipboard throw?
All that. I mean, Lane, that is peak Ole Miss in that moment. To take over in that spot and to need, what did they need? 12 seconds, basically, to go ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, it was less than that. 15 seconds was all I think they needed. And clipboard goes in the air, and Joe Tess, good call in this moment. I'll give him credit for this one. Said they just can't stop. It's pretty good.
Dude, 8 of the 14 touchdowns came in drives of 2 minutes and 11 seconds or less. I thought I had something here. There was 41 points scored in the 4th quarter alone.
Unreal. I mean, the Braylon Sanders score that set it up, 45-38. That's another potential losing team blew it there. 2nd and 10, and you're in a tie game. Arkansas gets no pass rush at all. If there's a complaint of the Barry Odom defense, that I will totally concede, it's that they don't get a pass rush. It's frustrating to watch.
One combined sack the whole day from both teams.
Not great. Drop 8 coverage. Somehow Sanders gets behind 2 Arkansas defensive backs, and you just can't have that in that moment. But as crazy as it is, Ole Miss had the ball with 4 minutes left, and Arkansas scored twice more. That's unbelievable. That's not supposed to happen.
The fact that they had a 9-play drive that took 1 minute and 7 seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, again, the flurry at the end. You have, this is in the 4th quarter alone, Connor. Arkansas scores a tied up at 38, 2 minutes and 1 second. Ole Miss scores right back, 2 minutes and 11 seconds. Arkansas, 2 minutes and 37-second drive to tie it up with 1 minute 22 to go. Ole Miss has a 15-second drive. It was crazy, man. But incredible. You're right. In the whole, just don't let anybody behind you. It reminded me so much of a League of Their Own scene. She's like, Evelyn, why are you you threw home? We had a 2-run lead. Just hit the cutoff man. I don't. Ugh, man. That's just basic. So.
Your Tom Hanks.
We're going to work on that in the off season.
Yeah. We're going to work on that. Okay. What would have happened afterwards if the result was flipped? There are a couple that are pretty obvious here. Arkansas plays in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah. Okay, do you think they're 9-3 or 10-2, Connor?
I mean, they're 9-3.
Okay, so I'm different on this one because they would have gotten that a win against Auburn.
Oh, okay. All right.
But
Why would that have helped? Why would that have helped against Auburn, though?
I think, like, I know Auburn's coming off a bye week, but you're talking about being like this pretty emotional run in September where you beat these two teams that like you probably shouldn't have, and you get the smoke off your back. You get drilled by Georgia. But again, like a win like this on the road to show once again that you guys are resilient, you like against all odds, whatever, you come back home the following week where you had looked so good like early on in the season.
Yeah.
Bo Nix is not a great quarterback.
But he's playing really well at the time.
He was playing really well at the time. He had 292 passing yards in that game. I just feel like this was one of those like you kind of they needed a week off, man. They needed a week off in like the worst way. I think maybe momentum carries them into a win next week. I'm purely saying that because of my allegiance to the opposite of Auburn, because at the same time, like there might have been like a situation where they overlooked him after like an emotional win like this.
Yeah.
Either way, you're talking about theoretically they could be 9-1 or 8-2 going into Tuscaloosa, which was a 7-point loss. Pittman's already loved. He'd been getting like national attention, but he'd be getting like he gets so much SEC network attention, nowhere near the national attention I feel like he should be getting at all. I think, imagine if Pittman finished the year 10-2 with the only two losses to Bama and Georgia, the teams that played in the national championship, both on the road, and he played one of them within a touchdown. The only bad thing I think would have happened, also they would have been 5-1 with 3 wins against ranked teams. They might have lost a coordinator if that happened. They might have lost Bryles.
Does Sam Pittman win SEC Coach of the Year if he wins?
Without a doubt, it's locked up.
Okay, I think it's a great discussion to have. In the SEC, it is not necessarily just a how much did you overachieve award, which it very often is in most situations, most national coach of the year, most conference coach of the years. We tend to reward national championship caliber performances from coaches. 6 of the last 9 years, SEC Coach of the Year played in a national championship, including 2021 Kirby Smart. Yeah.
Because I know the whole narrative is that Saban never gets it, but like Coach O definitely was. And
yeah, look it up. 6 of the last 9 years, the SEC Coach of the Year has played. Yeah, I thought you were going to say that. The SEC Coach of the Year has played in a national championship. So that's definitely one. It's not necessarily, I shouldn't say it's a guarantee that Arkansas plays in the Sugar Bowl, because if you recall, somewhere a Kentucky fan was listening to this and they said, what about 2018? 2018, Kentucky, Florida, both 9-3. Kentucky beat Florida in the swamp. Who could forget? Cash Daniel, poured the water, Stone Cold thing. Florida goes to a New Year's Six Bowl. Kentucky doesn't. Same record, because it's all about rankings. So it's not a guarantee. I think it would have been very, very likely. McElroy nailed that on the broadcast, by the way, to predict that the winner of this game is probably playing in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
100%. And that's ultimately what happened.
I will say this too. I hate cliches. Like I said, I hate the whole everything happens for a reason thing, especially I've been hearing for the last 7 months nonstop. I kind of feel like it worked out perfectly for Pittman. I mean, like the way they closed the season, like obviously, yeah, you would love to get like double-digit wins and win every game, right? They get to 9 wins for the first time in over a decade. They end up getting like a New Year's Day bowl game. They beat a college football blue blood in Penn State. You know, I think the slippery slope here would be is if like how much the narrative changes for Kiffin if they lose, because I feel like up until this point he was like he could do no wrong, but then you saw what happened against Bama the week before, and that whole popcorn thing was, it seemed like out of character. Like he didn't deliver it with a lot of like the confidence I feel like Kiffin usually has. It was very awkward.
That just goes to show you though that he was in a different kind of way pregame because of, I think, going against Saban. I truly think that's what it was. Here's some.
Go ahead.
DJ Durkin, does he get the A&M job?
He's probably fired after this week.
I mean,
you saw what Kiffin said after the game.
Kiffin was exasperated after this game.
Furious. And I'd say what you brought up a really good point earlier about Corral and switching his performances from 2020 to 2021, switch Kiffin's performances in the same way, like the week prior from 2020 to the 2021 game. I've never seen Kiffin coach like that, like just kind of not fully confident anyway. But if that happens and then he loses to another ranked team, and then you start looking at the schedule and you've got 3 wins against teams that are unranked, pretty bad, like strength of schedule. And then you play the 2 teams that are ranked, one of them at home, and you lose both of those games. I think you quickly, this thing could have gone off the rails, because it's one of those things where, in the same way we talked about how Arkansas, it had a top heavy schedule, or you kept waiting for them to kind of go on this like slide. If he's 3-2, yeah. But if he's 3-2, like after this game, 2 of the next 3 games were against Tennessee and Auburn, both on the road. Let me see here. You're talking about being 4-4 or 5-3 at best heading into November. I don't think they beat Tennessee the next week as a 5-point game. If those fans don't lose their GD minds and start throwing mustard and golf balls everywhere, like I think this thing could have gone off the rails, especially with the Corral injury, pretty quickly.
But they had him for Tennessee, and they had him mostly healthy for that game.
That's fair.
I mean,
like
it was after. Yeah. I mean, the Auburn game was really when it all kind of fell apart, and he gets like basically carted off, and he comes back on the field and he's playing. Yeah. And it's just like, you are not at 100%. You probably shouldn't be here right now.
Maybe I'm overreacting and just
touch. Let's end with this. The player image that we'll always remember when thinking of this. I've changed my stance on this from what it was when we initially broke down this game. At knee-jerk reaction, pretty obvious for me, was Corral going into the crowd, dapping up his dad afterwards.
That was cool.
Really cool moment. Like, don't tell me college football regular season doesn't matter, or that
I never saw that picture until and his dad's wearing a Kiffin and Corral like 20. That was awesome, man.
Yes, very. That's the type of moment I love seeing. It was great that the ESPN cameras were able to capture that. Everything that's great about college football, when we get a raw emotion display like that on a national stage. I am a sucker for those father-son moments. You know this.
Yeah.
But I actually think now,
oh God,
it's KJ after that failed 2-point conversion. That's what I'll always think of.
Okay.
The camera pans to him walking off the field. And sometimes you see more in defeat than you do in victory, and just in sports in general. He did everything he could, and you could just see it on his face. And that was a look of a guy who had never played in a game like that and not come out victorious.
Right.
51 points, highlight reel plays. You score twice in the final 2 minutes. I mean, he was awesome. So unbelievably clutch. You score 1 second left from the 9. I mean,
no seconds left.
1 second when the play started, like essentially an untimed down. I mean, on the road like that, and just that touch throw was so pretty. We probably didn't even talk about that enough, but
no, 10 of 12 in the fourth quarter passing on those 3 scoring drives, and that's not even bringing up the rushing touch or his rushing yards.
His face afterwards, you just saw it. It was just like, man, this is brutal. While all the Ole Miss, the whole crowd's going crazy, and he's just walking off like, I can't believe I just lost that football game. Because there's no doubt in his mind that he was going to go down that field and win. And when you're in a zone like that, I mean, I can't imagine being in a zone like that at the most important position and not coming out with a win. And that said it all to me.
And the way he did it too is it wasn't like that. It's the broken play that Corral had to just have a go-ahead touchdown. It's different than having like a 9-play drive where you're 7 of 8 and you're having to be clutch every single play of the game. For me, and I remember this happening in the moment. Okay, the main one is Pittman holding up the 2 fingers, because when he did that, it was like the Chris Pratt gif where he's like turns and has that giant smile. And it's just like, what? Like that, like in the half second before they show it, it's like, please give me what I want. And then you actually get rewarded with it. Like
McElroy doesn't even know what he's going to do. They're debating it, and he's already holding up the 2. It's just incredible.
So that for sure. But I remember this happening in the moment, and I thought it was really kind of indicative of Kiffin, but also like of who he is, like not character-wise, but just as a coach. But I was shocked that he was so like blatant and brazen about what he said about his defensive coordinator, which was he said, and I quote, "Well, our QB is awesome, and we managed to play as bad a defense as you physically possibly can, but we got to win." And
not surprising that Kiffin didn't match what A&M gave DJ Durkin.
no, Durkin, and I said that defense got better. I looked at the numbers afterwards. It did not.
It got better. It got better from 2020.
Game.
Yeah.
Oh, much better from 2020.
Yeah.
But I think part of it was like most coaches be frustrated. I mean, Kiffin's kind of a dick, right? And he's also a genius. So it's like, okay, I'm doing my part. Like, why can't you figure this out? You've got the Heisman frontrunner quarterback at the time. You're putting up over 50 points, it seems like, in every game besides the one against Bama. And you just can't not give up 51. They gave up like 19 to Tulane in the first half or something I'm surprised DJ Durkin made it through the season. I thought he was going to be a dead man walking.
Kiffin was Spurrier-esque after that game.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. Just no regard for being politically correct with defense whatsoever. One last question to go on. This is our second Arkansas Ole Miss game that we've done.
Oh, yeah.
The Henry Heave of 2015.
Oh, this is good, yeah.
Which game is better?
This game. Because that game came down to a 4th and 25 freak play.
Yeah.
And it was also one of those things, too, where, that's like a kick 6 for the Ole Miss. And that's the only reason that Ole Miss didn't win the division that year. And backdoored. I hate to do it again. You know what? I don't. I haven't had to talk about football in quite some time. And since this is like a throwback episode, I'm just going to be a throwback homer. It's the only reason they opened the door back open for Bama to get into the SEC championship and then win the national championship. That's the joy of victory and the agony of defeat. This was just a great game on both sides that you leave and you're like, man, that was that was just a hell of a game. You don't even leave mad. I know the KJ Jefferson part, but this game by far.
This won't have, I think, the sliding doors of other games, that game specifically as well, the 2019 Egg Bowl or anything like that. It's not going to be remembered in that same sort of capacity, but it doesn't need it. It doesn't need any of that. It's just great on its own. This is barbecue that doesn't need any sauce, is just cooked perfectly. The best barbecue doesn't need any sauce.
Shredded pulled pork?
Yeah. Brisket that doesn't need any sauce, ribs that don't need any sauce. Yeah.
Are they gonna put sauce on ribs? What are you talking about right now?
Yeah, a lot of people put barbecue sauce on ribs. What are you talking about?
Do you not put barbecue sauce on ribs?
Unless they need it.
They always need it, Connor.
They don't always need it.
Okay, well, you know what? Now we've come to an impasse here, and that's where we're gonna disagree.
Our biggest argument, yeah.
Well, you're such a big barbecue guy too. I'm just shocked. I feel like there's a disconnect in what we're trying to communicate, because I feel like what you're saying sounds like what a serial killer would say about barbecue.
No, I love sauce.
Too much sauce.
I'm just sometimes sauce a little overpowering, and I think I like to be able to try my barbecue without sauce, and then I kind of dictate how much I need. And good barbecue, I'm kind of just I just want to keep eating this, and I don't necessarily want to mess with sauce.
I feel like it's like saying I love ice cream sundaes, but I only want vanilla ice cream with no chocolate.
No.
You know what? We've had a really good show. And we've killed it. So let's just end on a good note. That's my bad.
Let's end it there. Marler, what do we need to remember?
It might mean too much.
There it is.
Awesome.